So much of what we believe is based on the things that we think we know. If you believe it, you can achieve it. But so many of the things that we think we know are also based on the things that we believe. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. So which one came first? The belief or the knowledge? It's just mind over matter. And which one is it that makes us so sure about everything in our lives? Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. Andre here. So much of how we live our lives is based on the things that we know and the things that we believe. And even though they're very closely related, they're also very, very different, each with their own pros and cons. So in today's video, I wanted to look at what exactly knowledge is, what exactly beliefs are, and how they come together to just help us make it through the day.
We don't know enough about this problem.
Well, why not find out what other towns are doing?
Let's get the facts.
I guess I should not have been very surprised when I started researching this video that this is a very hotly debated topic. People are constantly going back and forth about what exactly knowledge is. And it's not just scrolls written 2,000 years ago by some dead Greek and Roman guys. No, instead it's philosophers, mathematicians, and computer scientists working on the very essence of what the difference is between having information, storing information in the cloud, on a server, on a computer, and actually possessing real, actionable knowledge. And as a debate, this can get pretty weird because it seems like it should be so obvious. Of course, I know what I know, but how do I know what I know? And how do I know that I know what I know? And what does it mean if I don't actually know the things that I think I know? I don't know. I just know. You know? Because this topic is just so vast, we're gonna focus on just a few key principles today. The first of which are the idea of a priori and a posteriori knowledge. Now, these are Latin terms because it makes you sound smarter. A priori knowledge is knowledge based on logic, theory, or deduction. It's stuff that you don't need first-hand experience with to be able to understand. You know that 2 + 2 = 4. So, based on that, you can reasonably conclude that you know that 3 + 3 = 6. That knowledge is a priori because you don't need first-hand experience adding 3 and 3 and 4 and 4 to know what the answer is going to be. A posteriori knowledge is knowledge based on experience that you have had firsthand. It's stuff that you have observed, stuff that has happened to you, and as a result, you have derived lessons and knowledge from it. The easiest example of this is probably whenever you tell a kid not to touch a hot stove. Until their first time touching a hot live burner, they don't know that it's going to hurt. They can theorize what that would be like, but they don't actually have that first-hand experience and a posteriori knowledge to be able to say, ouch, that hurts.
Everything that's out there, everything we know, everything we can't know because of our finite limitations, that is experience.
Finally, there's the sort of meta question of knowing what you know. Because once you adopt something as knowledge, it dictates or guides how you interact with some aspect of your world. And we all go around collecting little tiny bits of knowledge to help us make decisions. 4 + 4 = 8. Elevators go up and down, and ice cream melts in warm temperatures. But we don't always know what we know, and we don't always know what we don't know. And so to kind of wrap our minds around this, we have a tool called a Johari Window, which, while sounding like something from Star Trek, is actually just a little 4-square chart. A Johari Window is designed to help clarify 4 different potential states of knowledge. The first one is a known known. These are things that we all know that we know, like our names. You know what your name is, and you know that you know what your name is. Next up are known unknowns, or those things that you know that you don't know. Like the distance between Earth and Venus as measured in inches. I know that that number is probably astronomically large, but I don't actually know what the number itself happens to be. That is a known unknown. Next up are the unknown knowns, or things you don't even really know that you know. Like how that one guy in that one movie plays that other guy in that other movie. Until it comes up, you don't actually know that you know that. And finally, unknown unknowns. These are the things you didn't know that you didn't know. Like how I'm allergic to bananas. You didn't know that I was allergic to bananas, and more importantly, you didn't know that you didn't know that because you probably would never have thought to say, hey, are you allergic to one of the most popular fruits in the world? So in that way, the Johari window helps us to formalize the 4 different potential states that any kind of knowledge can take. As useful as the Johari window might be as a framework for understanding those different states of knowledge, it's still really jargony, and it gets really complex when people start talking about all of this stuff. It's very inside baseball. And the more I dug into this topic, the more I tried to understand what knowledge was and how people think about the things that we know, the clearer it became to me that so much of the things that we know are based on our own experience and observation, both of which are guided by our beliefs. Uh-oh.
But I'm an American, and some of the things I see in this country of ours make my blood boil.
And that brings us to the idea of belief. But before we talk about that, if you like this video, think about hitting that like button. And if you're interested in following along, hit the subscribe button. That's what it's there for. In some ways, beliefs are actually a lot easier to define, but in other ways, it gets a lot more complicated because a belief is a conclusion, it's an attitude or an outlook about the way something could or should be. You're selectively interpreting observations and experiences to come to some conclusion that's ultimately influenced by every other belief that you've ever had. It's the difference between something like 5 + 5 = 10, or the universe was created by a unicorn riding a turtle through a rainbow forest. You see, the nature of the debate about knowledge is around creating frameworks where we can objectively determine what facts are. People want to be working from the same set of information, and so it's in their interest when they're debating knowledge to try as hard as they can to set some kind of framework that can be extended out across a variety of different circumstances. Beliefs, on the other hand, are entirely subjective, and that's what makes it so complicated. Because instead of having an established framework that says this is a belief and this is not a belief, all a belief really comes down to is somebody's willingness to accept it. At this point in the video, I've probably said the word belief like 25 times without actually providing any kind of definition. So we'll do that right now. But here's the thing, as with all of these subjects, it gets more complicated because there's like a dozen or more definitions of what a belief actually could be. And so I've chosen my 2 favorites, the ones that I believe are the best representations for this video. And the first one is the idea that a belief is a representation or explanation of the way the world could be. It's some kind of story or some kind of outlook that says, hey, based on what we have available, this is maybe one option for what's going on. The second and very largely compatible definition for belief that I want to focus on today says that belief is an interpretation of events to help them make sense in the context of your understanding of the world. So you can see how those are very, very closely related. One says, here's how things could be, and the other one says, based on what we're seeing, here's what it should or maybe needs to be in order to fit into this puzzle of all of the other beliefs and outlooks that a person has. Imagine if you went to 3 different places in the world and picked a group of people at each one of them. And you asked each one of those people, what's 6 + 6? You can reasonably conclude that they will tell you 12 pretty consistently. Now, if you ask those same people in those same 3 different places, how did life originate on Earth? You will probably get a lot of different answers. And this is the difference between knowledge and belief. Because the people who are answering the question about where life came from are answering it in the context of all of the subjective experiences they've had and the way in which that outlook makes sense in context with all of the other things that they know and believe. Oftentimes, when we think we know something, it turns out that that knowledge was based on incomplete, inaccurate, or downright fraudulent information. And their beliefs because they explain the way that something in the world could be, but ultimately turn out not to be so. And it's this idea of the way that the world could be that creates a lot of problems for society today, because we look at subsets of information, pass them through our own belief systems, and this results in conclusions or outlooks that guide our behaviors and actions. But what happens if, over time, our belief systems become so convoluted, so divorced from reality, that the conclusions we arrive at are just crazy?
What are we real Americans going to do about it? You'll find it right here in this little pamphlet.
And that brings us to the idea of certainty, which is a belief that the things that you do are right and justified. And that belief is based on a confidence that the things you know are true and accurate. But unfortunately, as we saw before, not all beliefs are created equal. Not everything has as close of a relationship to knowledge and fact as we'd like for them to. And just because you think something is a certain way doesn't make it so, no matter how much you wish it did. Where this gets even more complicated is where people's certainty becomes aligned with their sense of identity. People become so confident of their beliefs, and they become so rigid in the structures of beliefs and each belief's interplay with every other belief, that to question any single one of them is an attack on them, because their beliefs become a part of them just as much as their finger or their toe. This is a vicious cycle, because the more confident you become of any one of your beliefs and the more sensitive you become to questioning any of those beliefs, the more likely you are to continually focus inward and forsake any external knowledge that might contradict the thing that you've decided you know. Not necessarily through experience or through any kind of experimentation or deduction, but because your beliefs are so strong and so ingrained in your identity that you're literally not capable of internalizing anything that contradicts it. And this will build over time until any criticism of any one of your beliefs becomes a criticism or an attack on you as an individual, because you are so inwardly focused on the validity of those beliefs that to question them is to question your very nature as a human being. When you see this happen on an individual level to your friends or family, or you experience it for yourself, it's easy to start to understand how this can cascade out to affect society as a whole. Because we're in such information silos now, and we're so separated in our interpretive experience, that we pass all of the subsets of information that we see through these lenses and start repackaging them as beliefs.
Hey, that fella's talking about me. And that makes a difference, doesn't it?
When I set out to make this video, my goal was to figure out whether or not knowledge and fact exist, or if everything is just one big set of beliefs. And I'm comforted to know that knowledge does in fact exist. There are things that are facts. 7 + 7 = 14. Apples only fall far from the tree when they're on a hill. Puffins are the best bird. These are all things that are objective, clear, concise facts. No one can refute them, especially the puffins. Where it gets really complicated is when we have to start relying on people to interpret the world around them and understand and assign meaning to things that aren't necessarily obvious, because all of that meaning will be based on experiences that they've had before, and all of those experiences shape their beliefs and outlook. And we can never forget the fact that unknown unknowns exist. There are things we don't know that we don't know. Like, imagine if tomorrow gravity just stopped because there was no more flarble glarble, and that somehow interfered with the snarfleflar. You don't even know today what a snarfleflar is, and tomorrow it could end the world. And if there's one takeaway from this video, that's what it should be. Alright guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. That's what it's there for. And if you want to follow along with more exploration of the existential world and essential questions that face us all, hit the subscribe button, because that is also what it's there for. And as always, you will see me in the next video.